All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fridays at 4 on twitch.tv/DDO stream. I'm your community manager, Cordovan, and going to be with you for the next hour, hanging out, running some chill of Ravenloft. Got our expansion out. Mostly going to be doing questing. We'll have the latest news, talk a little bit about state of transfers and game performance, a patch we got set for next week, what we did this week, a whole bunch more as well. But there you go. So yeah, so just this afternoon I heard a little bit about pitchforks for the show on the forums, but I have to admit it isn't entirely clear to me what is being pitchforked. My understanding is we have let you know sort of what we're up to, and you should have a pretty good idea at this point. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you got. Got some questions for me? Well, let's hear it, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. We should probably start, though, with a little bit of news. So let me go and swap on over to a different screen. Probably, I'm going to assume... Oh, I should probably just say before the show a little bit that the lighting is a little weird for this episode, and the reason for my personal camera here, and the reason for that is I've got the windows open. It's a beautiful kind of late summer day here, and as such, I'm not using my traditional lighting setup. So that's what's up if I look a little weird. So, okay. Anyway, main thing is that we did this week is we deployed a fix for some amount of game performance issue, and then we did a ton of work all week long to get ready for a wider fix that will take place next week. The process that we have been going through has identified some real key things that we can do to take action on. Some of that we were able to do on a temporary basis, and that got out in this week's release notes. So I'll talk about that, I guess, when we get into the release notes. But the wider work to essentially do it category-wide then took place this week. We're doing a build, something like, I think, Monday for that, and assuming that all checks out, that should go out next week. And that's going to have a wider fix really throughout the game, that because we saw improvement from what we did on Wednesday of this week, we know it's going to make a difference. Will it solve the lag? Wouldn't that be awesome? We'll see. But at the very least, we know it's going to make some difference here. And so that'll be going out next week. And that's really the main thing that we've been working on in terms of game performance this week is this issue with essentially some systems that were erroneously creating too many entities and landscapes and zones. And this week we'll be doing fixing a lot of those. We expect to provide performance relief. That was what we were talking about for Wednesday. But we're not out of the woods because this is just the first round of changes. As we dug deeper into the problem, we found additional problematic entities, as in basically, okay, now what about the other 80%? So, those fixes, however, required the team to go zone by zone and dungeon by dungeon to identify those entities and get them fixed. And the team has been hard at work doing that work this week. The second wave of that work is ongoing. I believe even as of the time of this vocaling. But we'll be going live as soon as we can fix it, tentatively, next week, in a game update. So, assuming that goes out as planned on Wednesday and makes a good difference, we should be in a much better position to get to the rest of everything else. The other big thing that happened this week, though, is the 32-bit game update, 32-bit game worlds officially shut down temporarily. They're going to reopen as ghost worlds, where you'll be able to log in and sort your characters there for transfer in the near future. Time is TBD. It shouldn't be too long, though. Basically, as of Wednesday, we began the process of moving the final stuff out of the old place. We need to set it up in the new place, test it, get it ready to go, and then get to a point where we can do the various shutting off of parts of the game world we need to shut down, things like the ability to quest, for example, and then reopen those as ghost worlds. And then when that happens, anyone who has not yet transferred or who missed the memo and still needs to transfer will be able to do so for the next couple of years. The other piece we're working on is the ability to enable 64-bit to 64-bit transfers. The Ghost Worlds work is happening first, but that will be something that'll be happening in the future as well. And that's where we are this week on the servers. It was a big week because of the ending of our long-standing 32-bit Game Worlds. And I'm going to miss you. Kyber and Serlona and Thelanis and Wayfinder, Kaneth and Galanda, Arganessen, Orion. Did I miss any? I don't know. Hopefully not. But you know what I mean. So that's where we are this week on that. So I guess that's pretty okay. The other bit of news is, the Chiller Ravenloft released recently, and we are working on patches for that, including a game update we did this week. Let me put that up on the screen. This week's game update was all about game performance as well. The first phase of the several phases of work that we talked about earlier. But we also did a fix on Wednesday to address one of the more frequent objects that impact a cleanup process known as entity destruction, more commonly called garbage collection. And games like ours use garbage collection to clean up no longer necessary information. This is everything from does your barbarian have, what is your barbarian's bonus to X while you are in Dungeon Y? That kind of thing. But then when you're no longer in Dungeon Y and that whole instance has collapsed, game doesn't really need to know that anymore. So there's a process by which that is essentially sent to a location, and that location is then purged of information to be able to maintain proper data flow and what have you. And that has been having some problems. Fixing that helped us uncover this other issue that we've been doing work on. But we did work this week as well on entity destruction, and that has also made some difference. Essentially, we basically said, in some cases, you don't need to worry about this. Why do you care where a rock was 20 minutes ago, right? So in some cases, we can correct it by making it client-side. Some of that work was done in this patch and will be done in the next patch. Some of this work is about just making the process itself run more smoothly and optimized. This is a pretty widely used CS or C++ kind of thing, is my understanding. And so we're just optimizing that as well. And then the other bit is, well, what needs to go there to begin with? And so we're doing some work on that as well. What does it mean for you in a practical sense? Well, other than hopefully making an impact on game performance, you might see some weirdness if it were to cause an issue. That weirdness would manifest in some kind of trees, bushes, or other decorative objects being in a different location than you were expecting them to as a result of this change. I know, for example, I think we have identified, either we've certainly been getting a couple player bugs on it. Whether we've been able to repro it myself or inside of the office, I don't know yet. But in Ghosts of Perdition, I understand there may be some issue with the beholder not moving between floors under certain circumstances or just at all, and that's under investigation right now. But that would be potentially halo of this, and that would probably be something we would just need to correct within the dungeon itself. It's like, okay, well, you can't do it the bad way, but you can definitely do it, and this is how you're supposed to do it, and that's probably what we need to do there. That was the focus of this week's game update, though. Okay. I think I am largely up to speed, other than saying we do have a 10% buddy boost weekend happening, so that means you can get up to 50% XP if you're in a full group of actual people through September 7th. This is quests, not raids, which is why it's a 10% rather than 5% boost. And that is happening this weekend. So if you are doing leveling up, this is an excellent weekend for it. Perhaps running Heroic Chill of Ravenloft? I don't know. Good weekend for it. Oh, speaking of XP and the Chill of Ravenloft, though, one of the biggest bits of feedback we've received from you on the Chill of Ravenloft in terms of the... I like it except for this part. One of the big this parts is the XP that is rewarded essentially throughout the Chill of Ravenloft, and I heard from Torque this week that we are going to be taking a look at that and presumably raising it somewhat. Modestly to significantly? I don't know. But yeah, it needs to go up, and we recognize that we are going to do that lifting. So... Alright, otherwise, what else should I mention? What do you have for questions? Let me take a look. Does Buddy Boost apply to Wilderness Zone Slayers? No. Because this is done through the quest panel, right? That's where the bonus applies. That's where it's calculated. So it's within a quest, not in a wilderness area. That channel doesn't exist in the same way to be able to provide it. Uh-oh, you want me to pronounce... Oh, Cholthos? I think that's how you say it. Cholthos? I thought it was Thules. I thought it was Cholthools, but maybe I'm incorrect. One of the coolest beholders that's been in the game for a very long time. Do I think the characters that are stuck in the transfer void could be contributing to lag? No. Because they are not, in fact, stuck in a void somewhere between transfers. They'll be stuck on the 32-bit world, or perhaps in a place where they can't unpack or whatever on the 64-bit world. But they're not stuck in a transfer queue somewhere. That transfer queue is empty. So... Why do we care where the rocks are? Are we the rock police? Well, the reason is because it matters. It matters, say, for example, if your character were to encounter a physics object, it would need to somewhere be like, yes, I encountered a physics object. But that's a very short-term kind of message that's going to need to be supplied. So that's exactly the kind of thing that might go into garbage collection and then get cleaned up on the regular. What we ultimately determined was contributing to this issue was a combination of things as described, right? We needed to make it more efficient. We needed to make it bigger. We needed to make it happen more often. We needed less going into it. We needed a whole bunch of things, right? But that work is underway right now. Oh, the first new Raid Loot Lamania preview. I don't have timing on that. My expectation would be a little while yet before we're going to be ready for a raid preview. Besides the fact that the people working on the raid have been working on game performance updates this week. We did just get Chill of Ravenloft out, so a lot of the raid work is well underway, but still underway. So I don't think it would be ready for a preview anytime too soon here. We're probably looking at something like weeks on that. Will there be any expected issues if transferring from a ghost world once they are, quote, no longer in sync with live game world updates? You raise a good point, and the answer to that is you don't do that, in fact. You do, in fact, update them as well. Every time we're going to do one of these things, from now on, for as long as those ghost worlds are available, we're going to have to make sure they get updated with all the rest of the 64-bit worlds, which is ultimately, eventually, why you get into a place where they are no longer available to the public. But we ain't there yet. We ain't there yet. and they will be open to the public for some number of years. We've said at least a couple of years, which is the plan. You want to go long enough that you capture as many returning players as you can before you do eventually have to shut them down for good. Oh, why does CS think we can, quote, log into packed characters and manually remove excess items from shared bank mount stable crafting storage? My understanding is there was some erroneous CS messaging that sort of got into the channel over the past week. And it's caused, as you can see, a very strong reaction in some ways. But it's just some erroneous messaging. My understanding of the intention of that message is it's basically saying you are in a pile of transfer-related causes that will probably require additional development work in order to do, whether that's an engineer running some kind of bulk query on the bulk process, whatever, script on the live or the old 32-bit game world or whatever. Some engineer manually going in and figuring out which item ID is causing a conflict and then doing some kind of work to manually rename the item ID or something like that. And so your issue will be resolved when that work is able to be done. And that work will be able to be done when hopefully, mostly, when the 32-bit game worlds reopen. We'll be able to continue with the process of that. And we will have been using this time to develop the processes by which to solve some of these item ID conflicts and things like that. I think there may be some specific messaging in that kind of bulk response that is a little weird, based on the way it was before we did the other thing. But that's just a bulk responser that has, I'm understanding, has since been corrected. Or at least has been sent to a CS agent who said, hey, alright, I will keep an eye out and fix it. Yeah. I wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about gear and making my character better. So you may have noticed last week, I don't know, sometimes I'm pretty easy to read, but I got pretty frustrated with this character last week by the end of that live stream when I was getting my butt handed to me. And I was like, why am I getting my butt handed to me? I mean, yeah, I'm not some R10 raider, but I ain't that bad, and this character ain't normally that bad, so what did I do wrong? And so I spent a little bit of time looking at this character, and really the answer is I hadn't really dealt with their gear set since level 32, for one, and I just had a few things equipped from transfers and that didn't make any sense. So I reslated my entire name gear in the last couple of days here, and I thought I might just kind of give you a brief overview both on what I have and what I'm working on for this specific character. So, and as you can see, so far so good running on Elite. We'll see. Hopefully I don't get smushed all day. But I wasn't doing that last week, and I was like, why am I not doing that? And part of the reason is I was using this is a two-handed build. So a lot of the times on the prior lives of this character, I have often gone either this was my cleric, so this was my cleric character that I used for a few times, and then this character was a sword and board, whatever I was. But I'm going two-handed this time around, and I had a maul rather than a slashing weapon in my main hand, so I wasn't getting a whole bunch of benefits of the build itself. Alright, let me go back to questions here. You find it weird. NPCs in Quest look different to different players. Example, inside the Lost Thread, the people with collars. Now, you're telling me I'll be like, run by this bush, and friend is going to say, what bush? Well, in theory, that's possible, yeah. To your earlier point, though, about why the NPCs look different, typically it's removal of accessory gear sets and things like that. So depending on what your graphic settings are set to, right? Because you got ultra and very and high and medium and all the rest. So as you go lower, you naturally are going to lose bits of frill and what have you from the process. And typically what would be lost might uncover a piece of gear set that is normally hidden perhaps by something else. And that's where you'll see those visual differences most prominently. The other bit I did this past couple of days is because I was like, oh, I'm still using that mall. I sorted my sentient gem and everything else to get myself a little bit better benefits, but I swapped over to my legendary Bloody Cleaver. Temporarily, until I sort my Barovia weapon here. Not Barovia, Lamortia weapon here. And you can see, though, so I brought back... I'm still using the Snow Peaks because I like the Imbued Eye, the Dodge and Max Dodge, and the Hamstring Ward. And then I slotted 3 of the Ultimate Fury to give myself the additional 2 Strength. Ultimately, as I get more of that, I can swap out the final one, but I just put in Dance of the Wind for the extra attack and damage. I don't have a purple slot augment right now that's going to do this build anything of any good, so I don't know what to do about that yet. And then I've still got my Ruby of Endless Night, which is my go-to, generally for my main hand weapon slot augment. But the main point I was going to say is, okay, well, I didn't want to be the Maul. I need to get the slash damage, so I need to use something that does slash, either Greatsword or Great Axe or Falchion. And oh boy, did I have to worry about that again. It had been a while since I had remembered that the choice of whether to use Great Axe or Greatsword or Falchion had not taken up time in my brain space for a little while. And wow, is there a correct answer? I think in terms of how do I want to say this? Least determinative answer award goes to, should I use a Great Axe, Falchion, or Greatsword? Greatsword has ×2 crit profile. Great Axe has ×3 crit profile. Falchion has ×2. Okay. So you might say, well, go for the Great Axe then, because, you know, ×3 is way better than ×2. And you would generally be correct, except that the Great Axe has a shorter crit profile, so it doesn't crit as off the top of my head here. 1920 on the Great Axe and 1820 on the Greatsword. And then the Falchion is one more beyond that. So if you're going to go Greatsword or Falchion, you might go, well, clearly then you want to go the one with the widest crit profile in terms of like the widest range. And you would generally be correct, except the Falchion actually rolls d4s, whereas the Greatsword is 2d6. So it all depends on kind of what you want to do for that there. So it kind of all depends. It's one of the most all depends answers in the history of DDO, I think. What did I decide to do? Well, this character gets a lot of benefit from having critical hits, and I want the most big numbers to show up on the live stream in terms of big, yeah, you critted, because that makes me seem better, even if it's not true. IMO. So, oh, actually, what am I doing here? I want this guy to blast through the walls. Anyway, I want to throw that question to chat. Where do you stand? Where do you stand I decided that, well, since I want the widest crit profile here, and I can get something like 15 to 20 times 2 just standing with this current setup here, that's probably what I'm going to go for. So I went Falchion. That's what I went. In terms of trying to decide, well, which two-hander do I want to Lamortia up and get the augments on. I would love to know how you feel about that. Also, I don't need to fight this guy. Once you do this, go over here. There we go. Will we still have to go to the bank for unpacking on 32-bit worlds? I don't know yet. I don't know. However, I'm tempted to say maybe for two reasons. One, by putting it all in Lord's March Bank, there may be some benefit behind the scenes that I don't know about. But for number two, when you log in on your destination world, you're going to want to be in the place where you can unpack, right? So by making you pack in Lord's March Bank, that ensures that on the 64-bit world, you're going to log in and hopefully be in a position to unpack on Lord's March Bank. So I think there may be both, as you might say, both kind of, quote, softer and harder reasons to require it still. But from a technical perspective, you're right, that if people aren't playing on the 32-bit worlds, then it really doesn't matter nearly as much, really. So, it's a question we ourselves are from what I understand, we ourselves are taking a look at and deciding what is the best way to do. So. Low resolution will make them naked. Typically, no. There are minimum clothing requirements in terms of the graphical processes there. But in some cases, we have actually run into that, or something kind of close to that, where your characters, like, some of the times where we've had, like, hey, what happened to my pants? Sometimes that, what happened to my pants is, it got removed for certain graphic settings. So it has, in fact, happened. Is lag better today? Well, with the work that we did on Wednesday, we are continuing to see lag. We know this. I saw it myself. You may notice these maps are not grayed out, and the reason for that is because I already did the stuff. Also, I already went back this way. It's what happens when I talk rather than look. I was talking about game performance as of Wednesday's update. So, as of Wednesday's update, we did see an improvement. However, we also know that we still have work to do, and we continue to see, I guess what you might colloquially call physics storms, or something along that nature. You know, that stuff where you're kind of sitting there rubber banding yourself and wherever your location is. Public area, the Chilla Raven Loft, or what have you. Some of that is related to additional garbage collection work that is planned for the next game update or so. And some of that is going to be related to the entity adjustment work that we have been talking about earlier. Where it relates to garbage collection in particular, tends to be the part of lag. Well, no, that's not true anymore. At one point, you could have said the population was more impactful on garbage collection than entity destruction, but I don't think that's actually true at this, or than the other thing, but I don't think that's actually true at this point. So, but what it's a case where if everyone brings a rock and throws it into a hole. Eventually that hole will fill up. And so we do have some population-related lag that we're working to address in this next game update and beyond. But hopefully even mostly solved with this next game update or two. That'll resolve some of this population-related game performance that you see when the population gets particularly high during prime time hours, for example. Can we talk about polearms next? I would be not opposed to that. I have a little... I think the bit is, can you make polearms both fun and competitive and look good and feel different and be different and fit into a meta in some kind of way that makes sense, etc. And I think that there are some real questions about that. It's not just, yeah, it looks so cool though, you know? I think you do want to think a little bit about some of this stuff. Also, let me just say, if you go in on Reaper, watch out for these plates. They will just tear you apart if you let them. These are some difficult dishware. Difficult dishware should maybe be the name of the show now. But, yeah. Man, these things pwned me when I was in on Reaper earlier. I mean, just absolutely wiped me. I was like, oh. Well. Okay, then. So, but I have been running this when I can in the evening, not just as for fun, but also to take a look at game performance and do other things that are related to work. Like, including finally sort this character's gear so I don't embarrass myself in the live stream, hopefully this Friday as much. But as a result, I also realized that I need to run this on live stream on no higher than Elite. And the reason is for the most part, I was able to get through the whole thing on the lower level Reaper. It was slower, it was longer, it was harder. But for the most part, I was able to do it, except for the parts that I couldn't do it very well. Soloing here like this. And it would be things like the Otiug named, for example. That thing just ripped me apart. Or these dishes, for example, just ripped me apart. So I had to back it off to I'm backing it off to Elite for farming reasons. But at this point, this is where I'm going to do it. It's really just kind of learning the patterns to tear my way through the quest to get the most number of widgets. Do the same for the wilderness. I actually thought I might spend something like a wiki map up and just start running through the wilderness some Friday here and do a bit of a farming stream, as it were. So, to the questions about Great Axe versus Falchion versus Greatsword. One person says, I choose depending on my character's style. That was also part of why I went for the sword rather than axe, which is just that this character would probably prefer a two-handed sword. Although I went with Falchion over Greatsword because of the wider crit profile it offered this character, and since I have a bunch of stuff that happens on crit, for example, it just made sense. So, part of what I do a fair amount with this character is use my stuns and DCs and that, and I'm not, like, fully optimized for it, but you can see it kind of allows me to control the playfield a little bit. And I also do additional damage to helpless enemies. Another reason to kind of lean into that side of it a little bit. Well, so for what weapons I get in loot drops, I'm not worried about loot drops for the most part. I'm not. I'm not using random gen for this character's main hand weapon. So it will be Lamortia. Eventually, it's going to be Lamortia here. Previously, the last life, it was a dread-crafted bastard sword. But that's because of that character, like I said, was a tower shield, sword, and ward. And as a result, I did not have a dread-crafted greatsword or falchion, and I didn't want to do the work to unhook it all, because I want to keep it for the next time I do a bastard sword build. So instead, I just sort of went with named items I could slot sentient gems into up through the 30s, and then I'm going to go with the Lamortia crafted falchion here.
The papers in this office reference experiments done on patients in the asylum.
Do I plan to TR any characters I'm running on stream? I have. I certainly have reincarnated these characters on stream before. This character itself, you know, was at one point on a new life, and thus is no longer my Aura cleric that you may have recall from shows past. At the moment, though, on the 64-bit worlds, I'm mostly planning to, because I've worked on a little bit on consolidating my gear and getting rid of my trash and getting rid of the old name trash, and make sure I've got a Caneth Crafter on at least Shadowdale, Thrain, and Cormyr, and probably Moonsea as well while I'm at it, but we'll see. And do a bunch of that work. That's really the focus of my development work at this time, is to focus on getting these characters ready for that. Make sure I've got a character that's got the raids ready on each of these game worlds. That'll be this character for a while. So this character is staying raid flagged for a bit. Going to stay at 32 for a bit. But eventually then, I'll turn back into getting another couple of past lives or whatever. That will most certainly happen. But not for a bit. Also, I have characters that are mid-level as well. They're not all like these high-level characters, so I got plenty of leveling to do as well, frankly.
Drained the water from the wash basin, you can use the fishing rod to reveal what lies within. You hear a creaking noise beneath your feet.
I read this note, did I? Must have. Okay. I am going... Where am I going? I am going this way. I need to get back to our fountain of sinking. That's where I need to be. That is... It doesn't matter too much, is ultimately where it's at. Well, I guess that's the other thing. Usually just use your epic Sword of Shadow until cap, then reincarnate. Yeah, if you're on the reincarnation train, then yeah, I guess there is but that one answer, is there not? And it is called the Epic Sword of Shadow. But, you know... there are other options, and you don't necessarily want Essos all the way to 34. Maybe you do. Maybe you do. I don't know. Okay, got that. I don't need to use a shrine quite yet. Where did I put my fountain? It's farther away than I thought. Also, can I say I really love the fact that they used the name of that old bastard sword from... I've got on my character. The cosmetic sword that they're using above the gate. I really like that. Oh, here we go. Okay. Blood something or other. No, that's blood plate. That's not right. Oh, that name is going to kill me. No!
Beside this door reads Patient's Ring. You'll need a silver key to open the door. You use the silver key to unlock the door leading to the Patient's Ring.
Alright. Heavy Cloak, Profane Life Force, Insightful Magical Sheltering, Mythic Chat Boost. Not terrible. I have my Legendary Firemouth's Cloak on. That's what I'm currently using. I mostly have it for my Strength 14. I only have 14, not 15, but once I get Strength 15 on this gear set, then I'll be up to 60. Right now I'm at 59. But I also, for the speed, is where I'm getting that, and I've got my Exceptional Con slotted in there, and Diamond of Wisdom, mostly just for saving throws, and Magma Surge Guard, because why not? Fire Resistance, because why not? So I'm not going to be using that, but it can go into a sentient gem. Right, I guess if you're using a dwarf, Great Axe is often the right call. I am not familiar with the Draining Bite Dampier Dark Bargainer issue of it only draining one level instead of one for every 5 character levels. That sounds like a bug report that essentially someone like Steel Star or Torque or someone's just going to need to sort through.
So that you can use it in your confrontation with Dr. Mordenheim.
Is there an ETA for the 32-bit worlds to come back up? No formal ETA I can announce. We're looking at days rather than weeks, but we're not looking at, you know, Saturday or Sunday here. It'll be as soon as we can. My understanding is that right now there is some amount of things in various forms of transit that are getting propped up and staged in the new data center. And there's been a bunch of work on the technical side this week to move everything else out of the 32-bit world, or 32-bit data center. And that's a combination of player-facing things, but not just player-facing things. And some of that had, you know, was somewhat less prioritized than, hey, let's make sure people can still play. And so a lot of that work is well underway as well. Dark Wolfer has a question about in the future when we someday get to level 40. Are we going to need to give Legendary XP in general a pass because in your experience Legendary XP is somewhat low and it doesn't get bumped up, it will be super grindy. We would have to evaluate that if and when that time came. I have not personally had much difficulty getting to level 34, but you know, I can appreciate that there's a variety of opinions on the subject. But nothing is formally guaranteed in terms of this hypothetical future when we hit 40. We can assume, and you can somewhat assume, that we'll certainly at least look at the idea of legendary reincarnation or something at that point. But none of that's, like, formally promised or guaranteed. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe it will make sense to do that. Just keep it the heroic and epic thing. But we'll see. It'll be a while yet. I have some exciting news to share about Extra Life this year. And Extra Life's game day takes place on November 8th, and that's Saturday. And I have been invited and am going to be going to Extra Life headquarters this year for it. And it's called Extra Life Unlocked, and my understanding is there'll be some amount of streaming from that location on game day. So whether it's DDO on the Children's Miracle Network mainstream, or perhaps just us streaming from there to our own DDO stream and Lotro stream, I don't know yet. But it's going to be something like that, and I'll be there. So it should be a pretty special and unique Extra Life game day, I think, this year. It should be a good time. I'm really looking forward to it. I've accepted it. We got hotel and such for me, but I don't really know all the details yet. And this week I've been focusing on, say, our 32-bit Game World's closing and everything else that has needed to be prioritized instead.
That will counter the head orderly's special power, the blessing of the full moon.
Pole arms are just fancy stabs. Yeah. I am trying to just keep up quick on chat. Let me, Well, I wonder a little bit about the poltergeists in terms of how performant they are. They seem to be a bit laggy, IMO. But what do I know? Perhaps we will someday see a release note related to that. But I think it's more probably that since they're a chucker, that whatever is causing game performance stuff is more acute when trying to do ranged calculation, would be my guess.
The plaque beside this locked door reads, "To the basement."
Did I not?
The door requires an
What did I do? Okay, I must have missed a lever. Oh, no, here we go. I am not a giant TR train player, though. Like, in my private life, I don't know. I get past lives. You at least want to get up to level enough to get, like, 32-point builds or whatever, 36 and such, but... I don't go for completionist. I don't think anyone's ever been paying attention to me since 2006 would expect me to be a completionist. But it is true, I am, in fact, not. Alright, this... let's bring our cleric back. Here's a real question, someone says in chat. I mostly run quests on normal mode on solo. Is this the wrong thing to do? It's really going to depend on your experience with the game and your ability to handle higher difficulties. In general, though, I think I would encourage you to go above solo. You'll find that many players play normal, hard, elite. A lot of what you'll hear in chat will be, our mega elites, who run Reaper 10 and are quite good at this sort of stuff. But that may well not be you, and you would not be alone. You would probably make up something like 80% of the population. And you'll play on all sorts of difficulties. And whether that's solo, which is definitely one of the easiest, you mean casual, I think, but casual solo, one of the easiest difficulties. I think you'll find you'll get better rewards, better XP, and what have you, if you find a difficulty that is more associated with your ability to get through quests at the pace and difficulty you like. So not the wrong choice, but I think in general you'll want to not run on casual. That's it. If you run into difficulty, do what I do. Don't be afraid to just what gets you through and lets you have fun with this quest. And if I'm getting just raffle stomped by the Otiug every time I go in on Reaper, well, fine, back it off to Elite. And if I'm getting stomped on Elite, well, fine, back it off to hard. And we see that on the stream all the time. I think it's mostly sorted.
You flee the crumbling fiery room.
Yeah. The one is up here, the other one's down there. You cycle back through for the chest.
You find an incomplete passcode inside this journal.
Yes, I will be doing a fundraiser event because I'm going to be in Utah this year. Some of the finer details of, well, am I actually streaming DDO and for how long is yet to be determined. But yeah, for sure, November 8th we'll be doing a charity live stream on both DDO stream and Lotro stream, whether it's simultaneously or one before the other, or one day, one whatever. We'll figure it out. But yeah, I'm totally doing a charity stream this year, and I'll be taking a look at the loot list to see if we can add anything to it. I don't know that we will be able to, but we'll see. Did you miss any exciting information at the start of the stream? I'm going to say no. Exciting nor otherwise. But maybe I'm wrong. It's really just a status update of where we are, which is that we're bringing the 32-bit worlds out as soon as we can. It really just a look at what we're working on for game performance, both this week and for next week. Yeah, there was someone in chat who was like, yeah, I go through a life about once a week, which certainly not an unheard of experience in DDO. And then you'll see someone in chat who's like, I do one life every... It would take me years to do a life. And I think both players are just as welcome in this game, right? They play at their own pace and in their own way. And the game does in fact support both those options. So. I try my quote default to the extent possible is I try to go like R2, R3. I often do not succeed at that difficulty and then have to scale it back down. But when I can, that's what I like to run. And when I can't, I'll go down to R1. And when I can't, then I'll... Oh, what did I... Oh, I gotta go back to the chest. That's right. No, I can't. I'll run on Elite. I would say probably my default is more... What is my default? My default's Elite-ish. R1 or Elite. Except on stream, I will sometimes go... I will go hard, as you'll see, and that's because I get distracted with trying to multitask and be on brand and say the right thing and all these other bits that go and clutter up your head when you're trying to play. The fact that everyone's watching you play, for example, is quite the... For some people, not a problem at all. For some people, it's like, oh, I would never do that. And both of you are correct as well, so... It can be a lot. So.
Revealing an iron key. You find an iron key inside the safe. This will unlock the door to the basement.
Oops, keep forgetting about that. I need to... Do I need to... No. We need to fix that. That's on the list of things to fix, I believe. So we don't have to do the cycle again. But... Reaper is hard solo. You'll see with hireling help, though, you can get through it just fine, in my experience. Now it is your time.
You turn the iron key in the lock. The door to the basement swings open.
But it's just really going to come down to you and what kind of gear you have. Like, you know, I struggle through Reaper 1, and people like Strimtom are going to be like... Pfft. The difference between R1 and R8 for someone like that is much different, because their overall cap is so much higher in terms of damage output and things like that, right? So it's only difficult if it's difficult for you, right? And if it's not difficult at all, then going R1 to R3 doesn't matter at all. So. Speaking of Strimtom, I wanted to thank him and really just express my utmost appreciation for the work that he did last Saturday at the PAX West arena. We had, I think, one of the coolest presentations on a live stream in DDO history, flat out. And it came together pretty quickly for PAX West this year, and an opportunity presented itself for us to step in and do a 2-ish hour game stream, 3-hour total kind of production time, and it was awesome, and it got broadcast live last Saturday afternoon, and a lot of people were in chat and checking it out. Speaking of news, I got a bit here in just a second. And it went awesome. It was really, really cool. It was a bunch of people who really had not ever played DDO before, getting led through by Strimtom, both some of Korthos Island and then the Chill of Ravenloft. It was an amazing showcase for for promo reasons for us, but it was also an awesome D&D action without the table live stream, and it really felt like that. It felt really, it was a fun time, and I pretty much guarantee you're going to enjoy watching it. You will be able to not long after the show, because I did get the final broadcast video and audio from PAX West, and we have permission to get it up on our YouTube channel. So that work was done overnight last night. I did some thumbnailing and uploading and video processing work. And so that's going to be ready to go for the weekend. So if you have a couple hours where you want to sit around on, say, a Saturday morning and drink coffee and enjoy some DDO on your TV, have I got the show for you. If you missed the PAX West live stream, or if you want to watch it again, catch what you missed last time. It's going to be going up here this afternoon. And thank you, Stream Tom, for being a part of it. As soon I said this on the live stream before, but as soon as I heard it, it was like, hey, this happened. We have this opportunity. Do we want to jump on it? Here's what we could do. We could have Stream Tom lead the following 3 people, sort of do a how to DDO, and then also showcase the Chilla Ravenloft. And I was like, are you kidding me? That is the best possible news I could have ever heard. That's like perfect. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't do anything. You automatically just basically did exactly what like the best thing to possibly do would be, and so they did that, and it was. And now it's going to be on YouTube the next couple hours. I did end up doing some things, but I didn't have to convince anyone that this was a good idea. It was just like, here, have this awesome thing on a platter. Would you like the best lunch you've ever had? Yeah. Would you like to not pay for it? Yeah. Well, we did pay for it, but you know what I mean. The people who were on the broadcast were compensated for their time. So, now the news. I was going to save this for the YouTube debut, which I guess, since we're at 5:04, I'll just probably finish this quest on a Friday and call it a show. But here's the news I got for you. Which is that we're going to be, that PAX West, DDO PAX West coupon might still be available until the 12th, through the 12th. And that is been reactivated and is going to be going out as well. So if you have already used it, you are out of luck. If you have not used it, you're in luck. Because the DDO PAX West coupon is going to be active through September 12th. And if I remember off the top of my head, that was the one that had the cubelet and the starter pack in it. And it is 5:05. Oh, I still want to finish this quest, though. Yeah, I noticed the just reroll question. Well, but you know, that's feedback that's valuable to someone like us a little bit as well, because it's something that they noticed right away. That's how that stuff goes.
You combine the materials to create the bomb. You can use it in your next confrontation with the head orderly to dispel his special power. You find a green key on the dusty floor. You've read all the notes contained in the asylum.
That is true. That Voodoo Spice is not streaming tomorrow morning on DDO Stream. My understanding is something came up and just couldn't make it this Saturday. We'll be back next week. I don't know about live streaming it again on Twitch. I don't know. I don't know what my ability or comfort level in doing that. Okay, so Red, the youngest sister, shone bright in the cold, wasn't prepared to face the eternal winter's wrath. The eldest sister studied hard but never met her lofty goals. Middle sister gained their parents' jewels and gold, but her wealth didn't help her when the time came. My understand then, it would be... red, black, blue. Am I correct about that? Let's find out.
When the lever is pulled,
Yay.
brains magically disappear.
It's giving you the order, and then you got to figure out the order of death, and the order of death is left to right on the pedestal. So that's what's up. Well, so using shards to re-roll a chest is perfectly optional, and I don't know about. Oh, did the invoice said I got it wrong? Okay, well, you know what? It's late. I do have to get going here. I think I'm gonna have to just finish this quest off stream then. Let me just sort it that way. I thought I got it right though. Did I not? Well, clearly I didn't. So let me. Where did I go? So did I need to swap? Oh, that's not the right one either. That's the optional. Alright, you know what? I'm going to wrap this up right now, and I will sort through this after the show. I'm going to wrap up this quest, get the thing done, when I'm not distracted and not in the middle of being on camera. So, there we go. You match the clue to how the sister appears in her tube. Oh, gotcha. So, alright. Well, thanks so much for watching. Watching on YouTube. Give us a like. Best thing you can do to help the show out. I'll be back next Friday with more questing and more information. And thanks so much for watching. Have fun. See you next week. Bye-bye.